I'm Laura from Garden Sanity, and today I'm turning this backyard garden bed into this cleaned up and freshly mulched bed, now ready for the fall and winter seasons. First, I need to clean up the weeds. There's a lot of them. Then I'll add pine bark mulch, and finally, I'm going to give you a tour of the cleaned up bed, which is anchored by this Limelight Hydrangea Tree and features Little Quick Fire Hydrangeas too. So this is what the garden looked like at the end of September. It looks like a lived-in garden. Things are a little overgrown. Still have a lot of flowers from Rose of Sharon, Japanese anemone, the hydrangeas. But it's time for a cleanup. There's just a lot that's overgrown. It really needs to be tidied up for the season. So let's start by looking at this section of the bed. You have the blue star Kalimeris, and you see the green leaves are Japanese anemone leaves. This is an aggressive spreader. I don't know if I would have planted it had I known this. It loves this bed. So I got to pull a lot of that out. It grows back every year. I don't care. I'm ready to pull it out. Not a big deal. But also, what I'm noticing is it's completely covered a little heath shrub. You see it way under here. So I got to uncover that too, so that can bloom during the winter season. This pretty flower, this tall thing, is a weed, and it seems like it sprouted down from the Candy Love Hellebores that I have down here. And speaking of, yuck, I got to clean off some of the dead leaves or dying leaves. I got a weed around these. I'm also going to put down, I'm going to move the mulch away, and I'm going to put down some Epsom salt. I had read on a Hellebore breeder's website that they add some Epsom salt to help the Hellebores, so I'm going to be doing that as well. As you can see again, the Japanese anemone has really taken over this bed. I let it kind of go wild summer into fall because look at these pretty flowers. They are so gorgeous. And they would keep on blooming, but it's time to just cut them all out and neaten up the bed. But I really, really do love them. They're just really aggressive. Weeds. Yuck. But I do find weeding to be relatively therapeutic, as long as you're not doing it when it's super hot and humid out. But it's a nice early fall day. Here's some peach blossom Astilbe. Ah! Look at this. Yep. This garden definitely looks lived in, let's put it that way. Over here you have some blue perennial salvia. As you can see, it flopped over again from storms. It needs to be cut back, but the bees love it. And that's one reason that I do keep it. The bees love it, so I'll keep it for the bees. So I'll just tidy it up, but I'll leave some of the flowers. And now I'm all done with the weeding. That was fast, right? Magic of camera. It looks a lot neater. I think I got most everything. And now it's time for the next step. I use Preen to repel future weeds. It's easy to sprinkle around before I add fresh mulch. This basic pine bark mulch matches the mulch I put down in the new garden bed, also in the backyard. I prefer putting down fresh mulch in fall versus the spring. The mulch protects the soil, looks nice, and it highlights the winter interest in the garden. I sprinkle Repels-All every so often to keep the squirrels and rabbits away. it works fairly well. And now the bed is all done. Doesn't it look so much cleaner? Let me take you on a little tour of what's in this garden here in mid-October. The purple verbena flowers are still standing tall. The individual flowers are so tiny. The dwarf burning bush has one red leaf on it so far. Pretty soon, this shrub will be covered in brilliant red color. This is the redbud stick I planted in the spring. It came as a bareroot tree, and it never sprouted any leaves until midsummer. It's an Appalachian Red Redbud tree, and I'm happy to share that the tree now finally has some hardened stems developing, so it is growing. Of course, it seems to be growing from the bottom up. So you can see here, these were once little twiggy stems. Now they're really going to turn into nice thick stems. So I am finally getting growth. I'm thrilled about it. And here's more buds developing, so I'm hopeful this is finally going to turn into a tree. I planted these 3 Candy Love Hellebores in the spring, and I cannot wait to see them bloom, which should be in early spring next year. These are evergreen and rabbits hate them, so they're planted here to guard my little redbud stick. And moving over from the Hellebores, we're moving into the Little Quick Fire Hydrangeas. Some are already bleached and dried, looking like they'll look in the winter. Others are somewhere between pink and tan right now. It's really pretty. It looks vintage. The summer color is absolutely beautiful. This is what they look like in June. Beautiful, clear, crisp white flowers. Just stunning. I'm really pleased with this year's fall color because this is the first year I planted these. I just love how they dry on the shrub, and I plan to leave them on for winter interest. Here's some of the flowers that look almost like they've been bleached out already, but this is the color that they'll have usually during the winter time. But there's still pink to be found, and plenty of it. And finally, we're going to move over to the newest Little Quick Fire I planted. It was planted while it was still hot, so it suffered some stress as it began to get established. But I still got a few pretty flowers on it. So this sprinkler head caused me some garden insanity this summer because it kept hitting this true dwarf boxwood. So when it was about 100 degrees out, I hacked the heck out of this boxwood. But you can see that it's growing back, so all is well. I'm going to move this to a new spot somewhere next spring. Now this is what a true dwarf boxwood is really supposed to look like. And here's both of them so you can compare. This is the Peach Blossom Astilbe, and I have 2 of them. You can see the second one in the distance there. Neither does much for me this time of year, but I keep them. They're so much prettier in early summer. So here's the Blue Star Kalimeris I also planted this year. I forgot to pull out that clover, I see that. But also, I see something else. Look at these 2 arrows. They show that animals or birds will still try and dig through the mulch, and I've got more Japanese anemone leaves to pull out. Always with the leaves. But the mulch looks nice. So you look at the clover, but you also see one remaining flower. This little plant is what's left of a giant set of 3 heath shrubs I used to have in this bed. The rabbits kept making nests underneath it. Here you see how big it was in the spring. So to restore my garden's sanity one day, I ripped it all out, leaving this big open area for now. This last shrub, however, refused to budge and started regrowing, so he got to stay. And there's still more Japanese anemone sprouting up all around this plant. I'm always going to be pulling it out. This is an annual Dianthus that seems to come back every year, so I'll call it the annual perennial Dianthus. And next to that is a vivid bright lights Dianthus, which is a perennial. The blue-green, it almost looks like grass. It'll stay that way all winter, which is so pretty. And I've still got flowers. Here it is mid-October. I cleaned the Salvia up as best I could. I left the flowers since the bees still love them. Behind the Salvia, you see Rosa Sharon seedlings. I decided to leave a few to keep growing. Lavender chiffon Rosa Sharon supposedly doesn't produce seeds, but these seedlings say otherwise. But at least it wasn't overwhelming like older versions of Rosa Sharon. After the rabbits ate this plant a year ago, all the way down almost, it finally has a stem that's taller than me. Finally. It's easy to pull off the seed heads. Just pull off right with your hand. They're kind of pretty. But the prettiest is what the flowers look like in the summer. I planted 5 Cat's Pajamas Catmint plants, also called Nepeta. I planted these around the Rosa Sharon to protect it from the rabbits. So far it's working, although these don't look like much this year at all. I'm told that the second year these plants are going to really take off, so we'll see. I have high hopes for these. So I'll show you more of this Limelight Hydrangea Tree in a moment, but first I want to show you my favorite boxwood. It's a winter gem boxwood. I give this a gentle pruning in the spring, nothing too severe. Sometimes it's actually hard to prune, and that's only because little birds love building nests in this shrub, and I'll never disturb them. And now we come to the Limelight Hydrangea Tree. Some of the flowers on this tree are turning pink now that we're finally getting cooler weather. Some flowers are newer and therefore still small. And the older flowers are much larger. The stems at the top of the tree are much sturdier this year, and I'm hoping it's because of the pruning I did last spring. In a previous video, which I'll link to above and at the end, I showed how I removed some heavy flowers during the summer, and I think this also helped to keep the tree looking good. Some stems still arch out a bit. But most of these are surprisingly good. There's small, pale lime flowers, medium pink and lime flowers, and giant flower heads too. As I move the camera down, you can see where I had to cut off some heavy blooms previously, where the arrows are. But the rest of these are standing up nicely. So that completes this little tour of this bed, all ready for the winter season. Until next time, happy gardening!